Well, welcome to the Shyamcast. My name's Brett.
My name is Shyam.
Thanks for joining us today in this new format. We're going to try doing this podcast through Zoom and see how this works. So we are in our two different locations now. Um, and to sort of actually just begin this, it's kind of like, I guess, a new chapter of this podcast. So we're going to try to do something different and start a series. Start doing a little series of the Bhagavad Gita and go through Bhagavad Gita from start to finish, not necessarily reading every verse, but covering each chapter, covering major topics of each chapter, going into some verses in detail, and trying to give a good picture of what Bhagavad Gita is and what all of the general teachings are that it comprises. So, yeah, I'm excited, Proji. How about you?
Yeah, I'm very excited. Let's see how it goes.
So, what we're going to do then today is just give an overview of where we find ourselves. With Bhagavad Gita, there's a little bit of an explanation required before you just sort of jump in, I suppose. And we'll cover basically the first half of the first chapter, so the first 22 verses or so of chapter one. Um, and just really to get started, then, um, Bhagavad Gita is a part of a much larger epic poem called the Mahabharata, which is one of the two major epic poems of ancient India. Would you say that's correct, Prabhuji?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, this one, and then the Ramayana would be the other one.
Ramayana, correct.
So the Bhagavad Gita is really just a small part, although a very important part of the Mahabharata, which is the larger work,
Mhm.
and a little bit then about the history that leads us to where we are in the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita takes place on a battlefield. There is a big, big battle about to happen in a place called Kurukshetra. The two sides are sort of members of the same family that are going to be fighting each other, unfortunately. And part of that backstory is there are two brothers in this dynasty called the Kuru dynasty, Pandu and Dhritarashtra. There's a third brother also named Vidura, but he's not, I guess, eligible to become the king, or is that true?
Correct. Mm,
So, these two brothers, Dhritarashtra is the elder, but he's born blind. And so the throne is sort of passed down then to his younger brother, Pandu. And Pandu's five sons then are in line, the line of succession to become the king after that. So uh, his sons are set to become the king, when he passes away.
mm,
He passes away young, though,
mm,
when his sons are still quite young, so they're not able to inherit the throne. So
mm,
his brother Dhritarashtra then sort of becomes the temporary king,
mm,
I suppose. Um, but over time, it becomes clear Dhritarashtra wants his own sons to become the king. He doesn't want his brother's sons, his nephews, to become the king um, of their country. So he, I suppose he doesn't do much himself. Is that right, Prabhuji? It's not like he sort of actively plots against them, but his eldest son is sort of maybe the perpetrator of a lot of um, attempts to actually kill the Pandavas, the sons
mm,
of Pandu, or somehow
mm,
or other get rid of them. He exiles them at a certain
mm,
point,
mm,
sort of tricks them in a gambling match and
mm,
forces them into exile for 13 years.
mm,
So a lot of Mahabharata is, there's like plotting against the five Pandavas, and it should probably be said the Pandavas are very, very morally strong people. They're very pious. They're very, very good, kind people. Um, they basically are the kind of people who would be very good rulers. And Dhritarashtra's son, Duryodhan, is sort of the opposite of that. He's has kind of a selfish personality. He's very angry, jealous. You know, he's very jealous of his cousins because he wants the throne that they're set to inherit. And so, where we pick up in Bhagavad Gita is that it's this whole situation has reached a point where the Pandavas are not going to be given any land, whatsoever, though it is sort of theirs by their birthright. And it kind of leads to an inevitable conflict. You know, each side sort of has their own army, different people, different princes, from this land are have committed to one or the other of them. Um, and then that's where the person of Krishna comes in. He is a cousin to the Pandavas or to the Kuru dynasty generally. He's a member of this family. And, Krishna is God come down in a human form, sort of playing this role as a prince. Um, and so he's sort of a friend to everybody. He's very friendly with the Pandavas. They're very close with each other. And he sort of tries to play the peacemaker at one point, especially when it gets close to where they think that they're going to have this big conflict. He tries to go and stop the potential war from happening, and is unsuccessful. In doing that, it seems inevitable that they're going to have this fight. And so he tells each side that he's not going to personally take a part of this battle. He's not going to fight for either side, but one side will be able to take his army, and one side will be able to take him personally as a helper or advisor. And so Dhritarashtra, the blind king's son, Duryodhan, who is trying to take the throne for himself, he quickly says, I'll take your army. That would be great. The Pandavas quickly say, we want you, Krishna. That would be great. We would much rather have you on our side personally than your whole army. And so that's how it's settled. Krishna becomes the charioteer then of one of the five Pandavas, whose name is Arjuna. And so Arjuna and Krishna are the two people speaking in the Bhagavad Gita. And where we pick up is this big battle. The battle of Kurukshetra is just about to happen. Both sides are lined up, like ready to go. Um, Arjuna is a very great fighter, great bowman. So he's sitting in his chariot with Krishna as his driver. And where it picks up is that Dhritarashtra, who is the blind king, he's asking his secretary, Sanjaya, to tell him what's going on in the battle. So
Mm.
you think I missed anything, Proji? What do you think?
I was thinking how when we do something over a period of time, it is very natural for us to become attached to it. And Dhritarashtra knew that he is doing it on behalf of his elder brother Pandu, but now he doesn't want to give it up. So,
Mm,
and another thing of Dhritarashtra is he is considered as weak-hearted. He should ideally
yeah.
teach his son what is right, what is wrong. Like there will always be cases where we are given a wrong path or we are suggested a wrong path, and the wrong path is always attractive. Seems like a shortcut, a way to go, quick,
Mm,
but
yeah.
always leads to destruction.
Yeah. It's always very alluring.
Mm.
Like in this
Always
case,
leads
it's
to destruction.
mm, yeah, yeah, very nice. So Dhritarashtra is, even though he knows the Pandavas are the ones who should rightly inherit the throne, he it's like he's just been king for a while, right? He's
Mm.
he likes it, and
Mm,
he
mm,
doesn't want to give it away. He wants his
mm,
own son to have it now.
mm, mm,
And yeah, it's like he kind of has that ability, maybe, he doesn't
mm,
have to necessarily
mm,
give it up.
mm. Yeah. When we get into a comfort zone and get used to it, then we don't want to give it up. And giving up is very hard because it is said that amount of pleasure we derive in this world from any comfort zone, um, it brings distress when it's time to give it up. It's very difficult to act in this world without being attached.
Mm,
We
that's very
see
true.
this in this. Uh, And
Yeah.
all the problem is because um, we are caught up
Mm,
so many things. And that's what makes it difficult to take up bhakti, the path of devotion, freely. Just caught up.
mm. Yeah, I mean, there's so much else that sort of seems to get in the way.
Mm,
There's so many other parts of life that we've gotten used to.
mm,
Um, Even, I'm sure a lot of us have different aspects of our life, different things that we do that we know maybe aren't necessarily the best thing for us to be
mm,
doing,
mm,
or that we know
mm,
maybe are even just unhealthy things to be doing.
mm, mm,
But to get out of those habits, and
mm,
to, especially, as you're talking, like trying to do other habits, trying to take on some of the practices of bhakti, for example, it's
mm,
very difficult. It can be difficult,
mm,
especially to keep it consistent.
mm,
Um,
mm,
it's maybe sometimes it feels like we are actually a king or a ruler or something, and it feels like we would actually be giving it up, something like that up,
mm,
if we were
mm,
to stop doing a
mm,
certain thing that we're doing,
mm,
give up a
mm,
bad habit, and try to take up a new one.
mm. Because when we give up an habit, na, we feel like my life will be vacant without this. Like where my juice of life will come from if I give it up. This is like I'm living on this. So it's very hard to give up something. And because we are not able to give it up, we're not able to take the new thing. And we are not able to experience. We want it. We want that highest thing, but we want it to be given to us. Krishna says, no, no. First, you give this up. Like you give this job, I have another good salary job for you. But no, no, Krishna. In this job, add a top up.
Mm. Yeah, and that's a very good. Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that specifically, Poji, because it's like there's only so much time in the day, and there's only
Mm,
so many things that we can dedicate ourselves to, and
mm,
so many things that we can really practice. And
mm,
we do have to give something up if we want to take on something that will be a better thing for us.
mm,
Even if we want to try to see if something is a better thing for us.
mm,
Um, and yeah, I think, that really, like, the fear of
mm,
changing
mhm,
comes from thinking that that juice of life, like you're talking about, is
mm,
is going to go away.
mm.
I mean, I can only, it's easy for me here to like sit, I'm reading Bhagavad Gita and I go, oh, this Dhritarashtra character is, oh, he's like a bad guy, he's very selfish and whatever. But, um, to actually be in that position and to be holding this title and it's yours and you can give it to your son and you have a bigger army, you're probably going to win. You have all the power. Um, it's very difficult to think that the joy of your life could come from something other than that.
Mm,
The idea of
mm,
giving all that up and saying, "Oh, I'm going to try something else. Maybe I'm going to try living a simple life,
mm,
and dedicate
mm,
myself to some spiritual practice or something." It's
mm.
very, very
Like,
difficult to do when you have all of that power,
mm,
influence,
mm,
wealth, all that stuff.
mm. And that's why the natural way that Krishna recommends taking this direction is association and baby steps. Be in association. Association brings little bit of enunciation, like little bit. That inspires us to take a baby steps. And baby steps builds faith.
Mm,
Just like it is said that we don't, like if we are climbing, so we don't leave this hand, like, those climbing, going up with two hands. So if we cannot, until we hold to the second thing, it's difficult to give this hand up, because then we fall. We are nowhere. And that's why first, with baby steps, we hold on to something higher, and then we hold on to something higher. That's how it'll go.
mm,
And that's why just association, baby steps. Then once we are more firmly situated in something more positive, it's easy to give up bad habit, because this is so nice.
mm.
And then one more step, and then one more step.
Yeah, I like that analogy. And just, I guess, to be clear, you say association, basically you're talking about being around people who are also spiritually seeking, basically.
Yes, yes. Like,
Yeah.
that's why we have this podcast, so we can discuss
Yeah.
on this transcendental spiritual subject matter.
Yeah. And I do love that about a spiritual practice and about bhakti as well, that it's all, I know in being around everybody, as much as I have, you hear a lot. It's very slow, it's very gradual. That people will say that kind of thing a lot. And it's honestly it's nice because it becomes like you don't really feel like a pressure. You feel like,
Mm,
oh, if I'm going to come and hang out with some of these people, we're gonna sing some songs, we're gonna cook food, maybe I'll just eat the food, maybe I won't cook at all. Um
mm, mm,
and see if I like it, and then if I do, I
mm,
can come back the next week and hang out with people again. And you sort of determine how much you want to do that. You want how much you want to be in that kind of association. And
mm,
personally, I liked it, and
mm,
so I wanted to start doing a little more. Um,
mm,
and I guess it just naturally unfolds like that. It's naturally
mm,
progresses
mm,
to where it's not maybe it's the practice of trying to take up bhakti as we're discussing it is different from the situation of the Bhagavad Gita, where it's people kind of
mm,
have to just give up a whole big thing
mm,
all at once, or that's what the decision is. Um,
mm,
maybe sometimes in our lives it feels like we're making a huge decision like that, but I mean,
mm,
really, the truth is we're choosing, like you say, little baby steps, just choosing to make
mm,
small changes in our lives.
mm. Like Ram Navami, we all were like dancing and jumping and and glorifying, and it's fun. And it's a spiritual pleasure. If you don't enjoy there, then you want to enjoy somewhere else, so that they enjoy there.
And a very joyful environment. Yeah, when
Very
everybody gets
joyful.
together and there's a celebration, which there's
Mm.
quite a few of them. I'd say there's one or two a month usually, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So let's delve into the the beginning, the beginning,
Sounds good.
and it begins with a conversation between Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya. Sanjaya is a minister of Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is king in action, the attached king. Dhritarashtra's sons, uh, who are led by Duryodhan, they are 100 in number. They are Kauravas, assembled in a place called Kurukshetra. There is a state in India, it's called Haryana, and there is a city there is called Kurukshetra. Now it's city, there are homes, there are markets, everything. That time it was only a field, huge field, empty field. Millions of soldiers on the side of sons of Dhritarashtra, and millions on the side of Pandavas. And Sanjaya is sitting in Hastinapur, which is the capital city. And Sanjay has this uh, vision that sitting at home, he can see what is going on in the battlefield. And that was given by his spiritual master. It is said that by the mercy of spiritual master, one can do anything which is materially impossible. And Sanjay is an example. And Dhritarashtra knew that Sanjay is way more advanced than me. And that's why Dhritarashtra is blind. But in a way, Sanjay is also blind to what is happening in the battlefield, in a way. But he could see everything. So Dhritarashtra is asking him, can you tell me what is going on there? This also shows that although Sanjay is in a spiritually advanced position, he has no problem in taking a role of a servant of Dhritarashtra. Just like Krishna is a supreme lord, and he has no problem in taking the role of a driver for Arjuna. So then Dhritarashtra asks what is happening, and then Sanjay starts speaking. So this is just the environment, the last part of the environment.
Mm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think well yeah, I guess I mean that's it's a good a big point to bring up. I mean, bhakti is about trying to take on an attitude of service.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have these two principal characters right in the beginning who are
Mm-hmm.
taking on roles that are, basically of service,
Mm-hmm.
who are, more advanced spiritually, but who are, I guess, very like voluntarily, very happily,
Mm-hmm.
serving somebody else, so
Mm-hmm.
Sanjaya is explaining what's going on, what he can see, as he
Mm-hmm.
sort of looks out at this battlefield. And, Krishna, I know I've heard from other people who have
Mm-hmm.
described this, that in those days when a chariot driver
Mm-hmm.
is driving an archer around a battlefield, it's very loud, obviously. It's kind of a like hectic environment. And so,
Mm-hmm.
the archer doesn't really have the opportunity to like call out instructions or communicate very well with his chariot driver. There's a battle going on, and so if he wants him to go a particular direction, he just kicks him in whatever shoulder. He wants him to go right, he just sort of kicks him in the shoulder, on the right shoulder. Wants him to go left, kicks him on the left shoulder. And that, I think, is pretty significant as well. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it gets into the relationship that different people have with Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
There are many different relationships that are described, but Arjuna has a friendship with Krishna. Their relationship is that of very close friends. And when Krishna is somebody's friend, he'll play this sort of role where he'll let you kick him in the shoulder and tell him which direction to drive the cart. And um, so that's a very, I don't know, that's a significant point for sure.
Mm-hmm. So now the first topic that comes up is politics. So we can discuss something little bit about being political and the harm, what it means to be political,
Hmm.
what it means to be simple from this life of Duryodhan. So Duryodhan is inspiring um, Bhishma, Durona, who were his teacher. They're very powerful people, and his grandfather, who has this benediction that nobody can kill him. He can be killed only at his own will, and nobody can kill him. So he's inspiring them that they should no two things. One is he's glorifying them, and one is he's showing them their competitors, so as to glorify them, so that they feel very good about them, and telling them about the competitor so that they feel anger. so they can give their full.
Ah, yeah.
So being political means you want somebody else to do what you want, what is in your favor, and you're not much concerned about what is in favor of them, but you're only concerned about what you want to see,
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
the results you want.
Could I read, if I could, Prabhuji, I'll just read one of the verses. And I know there's an
Go ahead.
interesting description and purport to this one. So this verse 3, Duryodhana
Mm,
is speaking, and he says, "O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada."
mm,
So there is one teacher there. You mentioned him. His name is
mm,
Dronacharya,
mm,
and he is the military teacher for all of these people because they're all family members, whether it's
mm,
Duryodhana and his brothers or whether it's the five Pandavas. He is the teacher of all of them. And
mm,
so what I found interesting is that in this, the commentary to this verse, it's pointed out that Duryodhana is sort of he's being political with his teacher in this way where
mm,
he's pointing out to him, hey, make sure, you remember that you are the one who taught our enemies, and our enemies are
mm,
very expertly arranged. They look like they're really well
mm,
prepared, they look very good, for this battle, and it was because of you who taught them that. So, it's
mm,
sort of like this message of like make sure that you do an even better job on our side arranging, making
mm,
sure that let's test to make sure where your loyalties really lie. I think that's a political thing, to say something that's sort of it's like a little bit of a jab at somebody. It's a little bit of um, making them feel guilty about something that they did, or just making sure that they know the stakes for them and their position are very high, and that they're being watched. Their their actions are kind of being tracked, and that there's a very high expectation for them
mm.
with what they need to do. Sham, did we lose you there for a second?
Yeah, I'm back now. You get
Okay.
this? Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, there's that little there's that little piece that Duryodhana speaks to Dronacharya, basically, hey, you did a good job preparing our enemies, so let's make sure that our side is well prepared. And then
No,
he
and
goes into,
yeah,
or sorry,
another thing on this point,
yeah.
Drupad and Drona, they were classmates, very close friends. And Drona was a teacher. And teacher are usually like a Brahman or a teacher. So they are simple people. And Drupad was the son of a king. So in future, and like one is a king who is very lavish, opulent. One is very simple, living in a simple condition. But they were very good friends. So Drupad told Drona that I'm there for you forever. Whenever you need anything, I will be there for you because I will take over the kingdom. Drona said, I'm grateful to you. So later on, Drona became very poor and he didn't even had money to feed milk to his children. Milk is like a cheap commodity in India because so many cows are there. So Drona's wife told Drona, why don't you go and take help from your childhood friend Drupad? So Drona said yes. So Drona went. And Drupad was a king, and he has hundreds of ministers and living in a huge palace. And there is simple Brahmana, and under Drupad there are like thousands of such Brahmanas who are serving Drupad, who was a like great king. So Drona went and Drona said, "Remember our childhood friendship?" In a very humble mood, Drona said, "Drupad, because of that power, became proud." So Drupad said, "Friendship is amongst equals."
Uh,
So it really hurted Drona. So Drona went back. And then Drona, he was a teacher, so he taught Pandavas, Arjuna, and others. So after teaching, usually you give teacher whatever he desires. You give something. It's called Guru Dakshina, or a donation to the teacher, donation to Guru. So all the Pandavas they asked Drona that what can we give you as Guru Dakshina? And Drona has this huge anger in him. So Drona said, tie Drupad like an animal and bring him to me. So his mistake is also there, basically. Drona's mistake is also there. So the Pandavas, headed by Arjuna, they went to the kingdom. They fought with the entire kingdom. They won. They were like the greatest warriors. They tied Drupad like an animal and brought him to Drona. And then Drona told Drupad, I am not like you. I'm not gonna punish you. I give you your life as a donation. You are free now. You can go. But for a king, if you hurt him like this with these words, it's very, very painful. So Drupad went, and then Drupad assembled all the brahmanas, all the people who perform sacrifices, and they performed a sacrifice to create a son. Drupad wanted to have a son who will be the cause of killing Drona. And with that intention, they performed a sacrifice. And then the son who came up was um, Drishtadyumna, who later on actually killed Drona. Later on in the battlefield, Drona was killed by Drishtadyumna.
Mhm.
So Drona really like had a lot of anger and envy for Drupad. So Duryodhana is telling, see how your army is perfectly arranged by the son of Drupad. He's not even taking the name. He's telling the son of Drupad so that
Uh-huh.
he wants to bring that name, so that really angers Drona, so that Drona can give his best. And the reason it is political, because he does not care about Drona's benefit. He actually cares about, he wants to become the king. And he wants everybody, he's manipulating everybody's mind in such a way that his interest can be served. That's politics. Politics means you want to manipulate everybody, speak such words, act in such a way, but your intention is not somebody's welfare. Your intention is your desire to be served. Everybody should become a servant of my desires. This is
Mhm.
exactly opposite to a saint.
Hmm. Wow. I didn't know that backstory. Actually, this is sort of the first I'm hearing part of that story. Um, so I guess what I noticed then, or what stands out to me, is that in a political game, everyone is doing that same thing.
Yes.
Everyone is Everybody has that intention that I'm just going to try to get the thing that is best for me personally and my
Yes.
position. And then
Yes.
the winner is the one who basically exerts their influence the most or is the most cunning or whatever. So,
Well, yeah, winner is based on karma.
mm, sure.
But the intention, the approach is adharma, or irreligious, or a wrong approach.
Mm. Yeah, I just notice how in the story in the story you tell that backstory, like Drupada, who is the friend of Drona, he sort of becomes poisoned a little bit by the power that he has.
Mm,
And so he starts playing the political game.
mm,
And Drona comes to him in friendship very humbly.
mhm,
Drupada sort of spurns him, says,
mm,
"You're not my equal, so I can't, I'm not going to give you anything." And so then Drona decides he's upset. Now he's going to play the political game.
mhm,
And it happens so easily, it seems,
mhm,
you know, because in a in politics, people are always really going after each other. You see
mm,
that a lot, and I think American politics there's probably no greater example of that. It's just,
mm,
sort of one
mm,
kind of horrific attack of character after another.
mm,
And it's so difficult not to get wrapped up in that
mm,
because we all feel pride. We
mm,
all don't want to be embarrassed or humiliated or insulted in front of other people,
mm,
especially in front of other people, right, in a public
mm,
setting. And so when someone does that to you, you know, something like that, the natural kind of response we feel is to, okay, now I'm going to play this game too, and I'm going to try to do whatever is best for my position. So I'm going to try to hurt that
mm,
person and hurt this other person and
mm,
play these people off of each other. And, you know, you just sort of start playing that political
mm,
game. And it takes,
mm,
I mean, it takes a lot, you know, for somebody to not get involved in something
mm.
like that.
So one quality that is, I mean, one bad quality that is ingrained in being political is duplicitous. Because you are duplicitous means you are telling him how you will be benefited. It's a game. See, if I get this position, I'm gonna serve you like this. I'm gonna increase the finances here in this when you all will be benefited so much. I'm gonna make this free for all of you.
Mm. So
So
you
it's
state whatever you state that your intention is one thing when your actual intention is something else.
yes, you are showing them how they are going to be benefited to inspire them, and you want everybody to work for your benefit. So Duryodhana is telling him how he will be very happy because he will get a chance to take his revenge. And he is using manipulating their mind so he can get the kingdom.
So he's mentioning this son of Drupada, which is the person who it's said is the person who's going to kill him,
Ah,
basically to make him angry, to, you know, show him the seriousness of the battle, to try to get him fired up to
ah.
fight in this battle,
So
which is ultimately all for Duryodhana.
Duryodhana, this is being political.
Yeah.
It is said that duplicitous, being political, not good for spiritual life. Now, if Duryodhana was simple and envious, then he would say, well, I want you to fight very aggressively because I want to become the king. Now, he's not duplicitous, but he's envious. Now, duplicitous means I want you to fight because it is for your benefit. The in and out change, that is being political, that is being duplicitous.
Interesting.
And
You know,
telling your viewpoint, even though it looks very gross, it's simple. Now you are simple hearted, you are straightforward.
mm, I feel like people have a natural appreciation for simplicity.
Yes, yes,
Would you
definitely.
agree? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great quality.
Yeah. I mean, even if somebody is, you know, for example, envious, like you're talking about, and they just tell people, well, I want to be the king, so you should fight for me. You know, people like that more than if
Yeah,
someone is being duplicitous and saying, oh, it's really all for you guys and you're going to benefit so much. It's people, you know, people understand when someone is trying to play them. You know, they
yeah.
understand when someone is really just sort of trying to help themselves, but is acting like they're very righteous or very moral.
Mm,
You know, we can tell that, and so even if someone doesn't really have very good intentions necessarily, if they are honest about that,
mm.
people appreciate that more.
Yeah, definitely. And also, people are not fools. There is a lot sitting in the heart of all living entities. When we try to become duplicitous, others, Lord sitting in their heart will tell them, he has his own motives. And when people see duplicity in somebody else, they actually lose faith in them.
Mhm.
And people can sense it. But it is just a disease, an internal disease to be political, to be duplicitous.
Mhm. And yet, I guess, you know, one of the other tools of a politician is fear
Uh,
and asserting themselves over other people. And
uh,
so I think that's one of the tools that Duryodhana employs as well in this first chapter as he's going
mm,
through and he lists the different people who are going to be fighting on the other side.
Mm,
He lists them first. You know, some of
mm,
these verses are he's just listing all these names of these great warriors who are going to be fighting on the other side.
mm,
Um,
mm,
you know, helping to instill some of that fear and some of that anger, you know, in his own fighters.
mm,
And then he does sort of switch and he says, "But we also have a lot of great fighters as well." You know, and then
mm,
he starts um, listing all the fighters on his side. And he says an interesting thing as well, Proji,
mm,
that this is in verse 9. He says, "There are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake."
mm, mm.
And sort of like, you know, it's this assertion that's maybe a little bit less duplicitous. A little bit, he's sort of like he just opens that door a little bit and lets you in on his.
But then there is pride in that.
Yeah, for sure. It's not an admirable thing that he does, but he's, you know, it's one point where
Sometimes
he's
one
just saying it's
emotion,
all this is all for me, you know.
yeah, sometimes one emotion trigger, sometimes other emotion trigger. You switch from emotion to emotion, but they are all unconducive emotions. To say that, these people can lay their life for me, it's like clearly I'm the master. है ना? Spiritual consciousness is I can lay my life for all of them. I owe all these people who are helping me. I'm so grateful to all these people. I can do anything for them. I'm so indebted to how they are serving me. I don't deserve it. A spiritual leader will think like that. A political leader will like, they are my servants. I'm the master and they can die for me.
Mm, yeah. The you know, the position, it just makes me think of Krishna's position as well, where
Uh-huh.
he, I mean, he voluntarily does that. And even though honestly, you know, it's like even though one side of this family, the Pandavas, really love him and are his, you know, his best friends, and then the other side, the Kauravas, they sort of despise him and they're, you know, they're not nice to him.
Mm,
Um, he still gives each one the chance. It's like, hey, one of you can take my army and one of you can have me, and you guys just decide, and I'll do whatever you guys want to do.
mm,
Um,
mm,
yeah, I think that just puts that into perspective for me too, what he
mm. Yeah,
he
you gave a
does.
good example. Krishna is indebted to his devotees. Krishna's devotees can do anything on Krishna's sake. But Krishna says, I am controlled by my devotees, I am the servant of my devotees. I can do anything for them. They can do anything for me. This is the relationship of love. It's pure spiritual relationship. And Krishna wants to serve his devotees. Devotees wants to serve Krishna. But Duryodhana want everybody to serve him and keep him on a high position.
Mhm.
This also arises because of insecurity. Actually, it is not our position to be king because we are temporary little beings in this world. And we know we are fallible. And because we are fallible, we know any point of time we may fall down. If not from our position at the death, we will fall down. We are fallible beings. So when we try to get a role that is not really our true nature, insecurity will be there. And for that, we have to exert a lot of influence to remain where we want to be. Like His Holiness Sadhana Swami Maharaj says, it's very unnatural to be who we really are not. Because our natural position is servants, constitutional position. But when we try to be somebody which is not our true nature, we really have to exert a lot of force like Duryodhana is trying to. But when we act in our constitutional position, it is very natural, no fear, no anxiety, because that's who I am.
Mm. Yeah, really nice. It's really nice. Is there anything else, Sham, that you want to say about the politics specifically of these first several verses?
Yeah, I think we discussed the essence.
Mm,
Some take home messages.
yeah. So, I guess we'll move on a little bit then to basically just what happens next in this chapter. So,
We can take one more topic.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So so what he does then, I guess, I mean, I'll just point out something that I noticed that's also in the commentary, but obviously feel free to
Yeah.
give me whatever lessons you got. But
Yeah.
so they start blowing their conch shells,
Yeah.
which is a big part of, it's like pre-battle, everybody has a
Mm.
conch shell and they blow it very loudly. This is something that we do, there's um a a daily practice called arati where you
Mm.
offer different incense and different different elements, and beforehand and afterward a conch shell is blown, and so there's a lot of significance to that. Um, but first, it's Duryodhana and all of um, his warriors. They start blowing their conch shells. He mentions somebody who you brought up. I know we're mentioning a lot of names, so hopefully people who are unfamiliar with Bhagavad Gita aren't, don't feel too much like pressure or too bogged
Mm.
down to try to remember all these names. There's a ton of different people. It's a very big story. Um, but the person who Duryodhana, mentions is grandfather Bhishma, who is like the head warrior. He's the one you mentioned who has a benediction that he just cannot be killed by anybody.
Mm.
And he's the leader of their army, and he blows his conch shell very loudly. Um, says the sound is like the roar of a lion. When he blows that shell, he gives Duryodhana a lot of joy. You know, he's very optimistic right at that point. And then there's a bunch of other sounds. It says they're playing drums and trumpets and horns, and so it's like on you can imagine the core of a side of this army because we are in a battlefield. Like these two sides are just about to start fighting. They're right there.
Mm.
Um, one side just starts, there's like this tumultuous uproar. Everyone's
Mm.
blowing their conches and making all this noise. And then it says that on the other side, um, Lord Krishna and Arjuna, they blow their conch shells as well, sort of in response. Um, and there's a lot more detail about when Krishna and Arjuna and then some of their other, their brothers
Mm.
and their warriors join in. Everybody's
Mm.
conch shell is named, for example. Um, there's just a kind of a lot more detail is given. And then there's a very significant line inside of verse 19 where it says that that sound shattered the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra.
Mm.
So one side blows their conch shells, it's very loud. It's like, okay, fine. The other side blows their conch shells, and the other side just kind of feels shattered in spirit. So yeah, would that be a good place to talk about Proji?
Yes.
Anything to take from that?
So, the topic that comes up from this particular topic is omens. So, signs,
Hmm.
drawing the conclusion from the signs. So, in Western culture, how much people believe in these signs?
Hmm. Um, I think it varies. I think that I think that in Western culture, I mean, the American culture that I know, um, it depends on maybe what you mean by a sign. I think that maybe there's a different sort of meaning underlying, when it's used in an ancient
Mm.
Indian scripture, for example.
Mm.
Karma is such an embedded idea. It's such an embedded just like
Mm.
concept of this is how life is, in India and in much of the East as well. And there's not that great of an understanding of it or a belief in it, to be honest, in the United
Mm.
States. And so
Mm.
a lot of people might consider if we talk about a sign, oh, this was a sign. A lot of people might say that it's a superstitious thing,
Mm.
or that that it's random, it's a coincidence, etc. Although I would say that a lot of people do believe in signs or omens to some degree. Um,
Mm.
I feel like I hear people say often, like the universe is trying to tell me something, or
Mm. I
like
heard that also.
yeah, people
Mm.
take signs and to varying degrees, whether they think that it's like this is an actual sign that is like being sent to me and I need to listen to this sign, or
mm,
if they just see something and they go, you know, this just the timing of this just
mm,
makes me feel like I need to maybe
mm,
think about a decision more, or you know, it's
mm,
um, they notice it and they sort of take it somewhat seriously.
mm,
Um, so probably just it depends on the person, but I think
mm,
it's understood differently in this context, though.
mm. So here we see many signs are given to Dhritarashtra about what is going to happen at the end of the battlefield. And the first sign is given in the first verse of Bhagavad Gita. It says, Dhritarashtra himself says, I mean, see, Dhritarashtra is telling when Kauravas and Pandavas assembled in a place of pilgrimage, desiring to fight, what did they do? So the first sign is this place is a place of pilgrimage. And Dhritarashtra is speaking. Actually, the place has an energy. Like if you go to, say, a holy place, um, a meditation center or a temple or a church, you will find some peace there. And you go to a nightclub, you will feel some different energies entering you. Wherever you go, we are influenced by the energies there. The place it has an influence on us. And we see that if there is Krishna, there is Pandavas who are on the right side, and this is a place of pilgrimage. So they will be favored.
Mm.
Then there is another sign is conch shell. As you mentioned, when Duryodhana blew conch shell, nothing happened. When Krishna blew conch shell, their heart shattered. So that's a sign that what the outcome will be. Then Sanjaya tells Krishna that he refers to Krishna as Madhava. The word Madhava means the husband of goddess of fortune. When he is the husband of goddess of fortune, then fortune will be on his side. Then also another sign that says is this chariot has a flag where Hanuman is sitting. So if
Mm.
Hanuman is there, who is the servant of the Lord, and Hanuman appearance is coming in 3 days, no, next week, Tuesday. So when Hanuman is there, then Ram will be there, and because Ram is within the heart of him, and the victory will be there.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
there
it's
are many. Uh,
just to go into that briefly. The it is very it's very cool. I think it's very interesting. There's Hanuman is uh from the other, you know, epic of
epic.
India called the Ramayana, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And um in that story, God comes down as Lord Ram, you know,
Mm,
similar, just like how in the Mahabharata he comes down as Lord Krishna.
mm,
And Hanuman is his greatest devotee, known as the best devotee, you know,
mm,
that just you know, unmatched in his dedication, his love for Lord
mm,
Ram.
mm,
And Arjuna has a picture of Hanuman on his flag, you know, as he's
mm,
driving his chariot. So
mm,
a very, I guess, a good sign for him.
mm. And I've seen many people in the olden ages, they will come to know about their death. Like my mother, she was telling me that when her father was about to die, nobody knew. So the father told my mother, means her daughter, he said, his daughter, he said, put my bed outside on the road. I want to sleep there on the road. And everybody was surprised, why don't you sleep in the house? Why do you want to sit on the road? Then he said, no, that's my request. Put my bed on the road. And then he went a day before. And then the next day, everybody came and he was no more. And the whole village gathered. Then they asked, how did you come? You all, who gave you invitation to come? Then they all said that yesterday, the man, and the father of my mother, he came to all of our houses and he said, tomorrow there's a special event. You all will be required there. And then he took care of all the wills and everything. And then he lied on the bed and he knew what's coming. And there are many stories in ancient India. It is said that if you don't steal anybody's money in your life, you will come to know your last minute. In Vedic scriptures, it is said that if you don't steal anybody's money, you will come to know your last minute. And there are many, many things. Why? Because the Lord is sitting in the heart. And as we progress in our spiritual life, as we make a connection with the Lord in our heart, the Lord will give you a hint. Hey, this don't get into this. This is dangerous. This is favorable. This is not favorable. There is something going on here. This is something you should really get into. Or like to the devotees, the exalted devotees of the Lord, because the Lord is there. The Lord knows past, present, future. And because He's in our heart, who knows past, present, future, and who is in the heart of all living entities. So He knows everything. And then when we develop our relationship with Him, we also get some feelings and some hints. But we may not be very adept at listening to that voice. And that is because we are covered by these layers of mind, false ego, and other subtle body.
Mm.
And once that becomes transparent, then the relationship becomes very, very clear. There are many things can be spoken in that direction.
Mm. But
What do you
even
think?
yeah, even at the beginning of this battle, there all of these signs are popping up, and it does take an adept observer to notice it.
To
I know I
notice it.
certainly don't notice these things. It's, I hear from other people, I read commentary, and so, these things are pointed out, but there are all these little signs
Uh,
before
uh,
this battle is
mm,
fought, which
mm,
side is going to win.
mm,
Um, it's not meant to be a secret, actually. It's not like
mm,
we're supposed to be hanging on the edge of our seat. I wonder which side is going to win.
mm,
It's actually quite clear. And when you look at all these little signs, it's like everything just subtly kind of points in the direction
mm,
of,
mm,
the Pandavas are going to win this
mm,
war, and it's because they have Krishna on their side, basically, because, a large part of it is because they chose him instead of choosing their army, or
mm,
sorry, instead of choosing his army. So
mm,
they were very unpolitical in that sense.
mm,
You know, they did not do something that they just thought, oh, we're just going to do something so that we can gain power. We're
mm,
just going to take all the warriors. And
mm,
it was just that we love Krishna.
mm,
We don't want to fight against him like we want him. We want to
mm,
be with him. We
mm,
just want
mm,
him personally on our
mm,
side with us, even if he's not
mm,
fighting.
mm,
Um,
mm. Two
so
things that come to my mind also as you were speaking also. One is, as you mentioned, it takes a keen observer. Not everybody can observe. So it is said that those who are unattached can observe this. Those who are attached cannot observe. Dhritarashtra could not observe.
mm,
Sanjay is speaking, who he could not get it.
yeah.
Another thing I was also thinking is it is not by playing a bad game that we can turn the situation in our favor. Rather, by living ethically, a God centered life, everything will be in our favor.
Mm. So like instead of just as an example, like if someone said, I'm gonna enter politics, I'm gonna run for office, and I'm gonna try to change this whole political game up. I'm gonna play a bad game, but I'm gonna like try to be one of the good people. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like we hear that kind of story a lot, and almost always the result is that somehow or other that person just kind of ends up being a part of that bad game, and to some extent their morals are compromised, and it's just a fact of life, I suppose, right? It's you
Yes. Yes.
um we as individuals, there's, I mean, we as individuals can do quite a lot actually, but it's very easy to sort of let your desire or your pride so trick you into
It's
thinking you can do,
yeah.
much more. And
Unless we are very strongly situated internally,
mm,
our mind will cheat us. Even if you go with a good intention, because it's not like Yugal Kishore Prabhuji, he is my senior. He says it is very difficult to not become victimized by our surroundings.
mm, yeah, very, very nice, very well said, Prabhuji. Yeah. Um, yeah. Any other thoughts, Prabhuji? I think we do have basically the last line, is Arjuna asks Krishna to take him to the in between the two armies because he wants to
This we
see the
can,
other
yeah,
side.
yeah. I think
Um,
from here we can continue next
yeah.
week.
Yeah, that's where we leave off.
Yeah. We discussed two main topics. One is being political, being duplicitous,
Mm,
and one is observing the signs. I have seen like devotees like Kalakanda Prabhu and other great devotees.
mm,
Everywhere they see a hand of Krishna because they know that nothing is happening without the will of Krishna. And then they don't enter into a game to win something, but they know that whatever Krishna's will is there will be executed. So they are very patient because they know, I mean, things may go here and there. Ultimately, Krishna's will only happen. So they don't have anxiety because if things are not in favor, they know that was not Krishna's will. If it is in favor, nobody can stop that to happen. Even though there may be many games and circumstances, they are not troubled.
mm. Like they
They know
can,
Krishna.
sorry, go ahead, Broji.
They know Krishna is in control.
Mm,
Others think we can think we want this way. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, only that thing will happen that Krishna desires.
mm. Yeah, just what I was thinking as you're speaking, like it's very easy to get distracted, and when we're attached to things, that's really, it's like attachment is a distraction. Um, we're attached to whatever we want, and it's
Mm,
whatever we think we deserve, whatever it might be, and so we're not observing anymore. It's like the
mm,
people you're describing there. If you're unattached, or if one is unattached, they're always able to observe what's happening.
mm,
And so they can be a part of
mm,
different types of games that people play. They can be a part of maybe even politics or business or whatever it might be. But because they're not always like distracted by like all those things that they want, and their minds in a million different places and filled with anxiety and filled with these different emotions, they're just not that's not the important thing to them. And so, remaining unattached, um, they can see the little subtle things that are going on all around them when it's like nobody else can.
mm, mm.
Mm.
Very nice. So, what do you think if we call it a day today?
Sounds good, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you everyone for joining. Bye
Thank
for
you,
today.
everyone. See you next time.
See you.